So Swansea have their new head coach. It's Vítor Matos. They've nicked him off of Marítimo in Portugal and have activated a €1 million compensation release clause type thing in order to do so. It's a big appointment. All appointments are, but particularly for where Swansea are right now and for the job that Matos has in the short term as much as anything else, it's absolutely crucial. And for the relationship between the fans and the current owners, the current board, this is very, very, very important. Now, Matos watched them lose at Ashton Gate by 3-0 against Bristol City. He will have understood the many challenges that he has walking into this job. In terms of his backroom staff, well, it's still being put together, but some interesting news in the announcement is that Darren O'Day and Richard Stearman, who've been helping in the interim spell, have been moved out the door, and in comes Joe Allen and Leon Britton. Now, it's hard not to smile when you say that because these two are synonymous with Swansea City and certainly with what is perceived to be the Swansea City way. And I suppose on that front, it'll be good for Matos to have them on hand to support him as he gets to grips with being the head coach of this club. And we will wait to see what the rest of his staff looks like. But there are only 4 teams beneath Swansea now in the Championship table. That's Sheffield Wednesday at the bottom, then Sheffield United, Norwich City and Oxford. Their 10 points in the last 12 league games is relegation form, and the underlying performance data is horrendous, as we've covered on this channel previously. Swansea haven't created over 1 expected goal in a league game in their last 7, and they've only kept the opposition beneath 1 expected goal once in the last 7. It looks like it was a pretty difficult hiring process for Swansea. They were going up against Norwich City and Southampton and Middlesbrough, and that did come back to bite them because Kim Hellberg looked like the one that they'd lined up, only for him to choose Borough instead and for them to have to look elsewhere for their head coach. Darren O'Day's been taking the team in interim charge and said, I've had to live for the last couple of weeks not knowing what the next 2 days bring. It's 24 hours at a time. So I would suggest this has been a relatively chaotic period for the club and they really need to settle down. Matos really needs to start well and the fixture list is relatively kind. It's really, really important that he doesn't take time to get his feet under the table. The problem being that Matos has only managed a dozen or so league games as a senior head coach in his career so far. This is a guy who has a lot of experience at elite youth level, both with Porto, but also with Liverpool, where he worked for about 5 years, ultimately leaving Liverpool to join Pep Lijnders when he took the Salzburg job. Matos was his assistant. It didn't go very well. They didn't last very long. And he's been at Marítimo for this season. Now, they're a very big club for the Portuguese second tier. They would be expected to challenge for promotion. And under Matos, they were doing so, albeit they weren't clear at the top of the table by any means. One really interesting quirk for me is that Marítimo being based in Madeira, which is an island just off Africa, over 1,000 kilometers away from the Portuguese mainland, gives them a huge advantage when it comes to playing at home. And historically, Marítimo have always had an amazing home record, and that's what sustained them in the top tier for so long. But this season under Matos, bit strangely, their home record wasn't great, only 2 wins in his 6 home league games. But they won 4 games away from home out of 5, all of them to 0. So will that mean anything when it comes to him and Swansea? No. But frankly, like those who've appointed Matos, we haven't got a lot to go at when it comes to understanding what he's going to be like as a head coach. Looking at the formation and system that he's been playing, well, it's not that much of a surprise. It's pretty in vogue. It's a 4-3-3 shape generally, with 1 sitting midfielder, 2 attacking number 8s going box to box, wide forwards, and fairly sort of traditional fullbacks holding width as well. I mean, the brief for him here is massive, really. He has to improve Swansea in attack and improve Swansea in defence. Quite often when a new manager comes in, it might be one of the other, which has really fallen off a cliff. But Swans have been poor, both going forward and defensively. So it's a question of finding balance pretty quickly. And I think he needs to excite the fans as well. There'll be a lot of unease at appointing a first-time rookie manager. Now, that can quickly turn to excitement if things start well. If Matos speaks well in his opening interview, if Swansea play well in his first few games, the fans will buy into it fairly quickly. But I think they need exciting as well, because the football this season has been very, very poor. I would ask the same questions that I have done for previous managers when it comes to this Swansea squad and what Matos has to work with. Can you be good enough defensively with Tymon and Josh Key as your fullbacks in a back four? They are both much better going forward than they are defensively. And if you play with them, do you need really good, strong centre-backs and defensive midfielders? And A, do Swansea have those? And B, if you also want to dominate the ball and look after it a lot in deep areas in the middle third as well, you need to make sure you've got decent midfield ball progressors and orchestrators. So what's the right balance in the central midfield zone between the ball players, such as Ethan Galbraith, and the ball winners, such as Franco or Stamanic? A player like Yalkuye was still yet to work out exactly what makes him a key player at this level, if he can be at all. And then finally, as is always the case in the modern game with systems like this, are the wide forwards good enough to make a difference consistently in attack? And that is basically often what makes or breaks a team at this level. I would suggest under Luke Williams and to an extent under Alan Sheehan, that has been what's defined Swansea City's attack and meant that it's been below par for quite some time now. I don't think the wide attackers are particularly good for this level, standout, consistent goal threats, creators, and I think that's where a lot of Swansea attacks go to die. So Matos has a big job on his hands. It's impossible to know exactly what he's going to bring to the role until we start seeing the team play. We'll be covering that very, very closely and keeping a close eye here on the DragonSports YouTube channel. But over to you, Swans fans. Get involved in the comments below. What do you think about the appointment of Matos? What are you hoping to see from him? And what do you make of the whole hiring process? Because back when Rich Montague left the club at the start of September, I did a video just expressing some concern about what I perceived to potentially be a bit of a power or decision-making vacuum being left behind. And the worst case scenario in that scenario was for the club to have to make a head coach hire immediately. And that's what's happened. And to my eyes, it looks like it was a little bit messy and it was maybe not the ideal time for the club to be making this appointment. We will see how it goes. Matos might be a genius. He might be quite quickly seen to be out of his depth. What's your prediction? Let us know in the comments. Subscribe to the DragonSports YouTube channel and head to dragonsports.co.uk for all the best Welsh sports news.